two emergency lights from a UK supplier called CPC. Now, CPC, as far as I can see, is the consumer division of Farnell. They will sell to the public, and they have a range of stuff. They have access to more or less the full Farnell stock, which is good industrial components, and they also have sort of catalogues of general sort of salesy type stuff that mixes proper professional installation equipment and sort of consumer items. So once you've bought something from them, you get continually peppered with their catalogues. It's just that style of company. And the interesting thing here is that I bought a couple of these emergency lights. There's two types. There's non-maintained and there's maintained. Now, if you have an emergency light that's classified as non-maintained, in the UK regulations, that means that it doesn't light when it's powered, but it's charging a battery inside. And there's normally an LED to indicate that. That's notable about these two things. They don't have a dedicated charge indicator, which should give a valid indication of whether the unit is charging properly. But this one was classed as non-maintained, and the idea with non-maintained is it charges the battery, but it doesn't light up until there's a power failure, and then the LEDs in this case would kick in and it would light. This, on the other hand, is a maintained fixture, which is lit all the time, even in the event of a power cut, because it switches over from being powered by the incoming supply in the event of a power cut to running off the batteries. However, there's a slight problem. There's two slight problems. Both these fittings are not quite compliant. Let me show you why. Here's the original listing, and I'll just zoom in this so you can read it. 3-watt LED emergency bulkhead, suitable for indoor or outdoor use. 50 LEDs, that bit's fine, colour temperature fine, lumen output, whatever, IP rating 65, reasonable enough. It gets to continuous illumination greater than 3 hours, which is the requirement. It must light for more than 3 hours. And then it states the batteries are 3.7 volt, 1800 milliamp hour lithium ion. And that's why I bought these lights, because most of these emergency lights use nickel cadmium battery packs, and they still use nickel cadmium because nickel cadmium is very good for continuous trickle charge operation. It's just a really robust long life technology. And so the first light arrived, and tell you what, I'll put this one down out the way at the moment. I'll leave this one on because it's obviously charging its battery. Oh, I've just turned it off. No, it's on again. So the first one arrived, and the first clue, initially I bought the non-maintained. It was a bit cheaper, and I thought, well, I just want to sort of open up and see what the circuitry is like. I want to see how they've used that lithium cell and if it's being charged to the full 4.2 volts. So the first thing that happened was when I tried opening it, these little clips, which are supposed to just hinge up gently like this and then undo like that. Really common for sort of the waterproof fixtures. The first one that I gently lifted off snapped, and the other one at the other side followed suit. They're not very good that way. So you open it up and there's still no sign of that charging indicator. And then you take the circuit board out inside, and you've got the cable coming in. Noting that the earth wire is just physically jammed onto the terminal block, Chinesey style, and I'm still not seeing a lithium battery in here. So let's open this up. I mean, it does light when you power it up. It just doesn't appear to have a battery in it. So let's pop this open. So the driver, which is what I think it is, I think it's just a driver. I don't think there's a battery in here. Is held on by a couple of screws. And then I shall need my spudger to open this by the look of it. Let's check it out for the quality of circuitry as well. Let's see if it's up to British standards. What a weird shaped circuit. Is that glued in or screwed in? It's got the circuitry for a lithium battery. That's interesting. Oh, you know what this looks like? Do you know what this is? Oh, that's really intriguing. This is a circuit board out of one of those. Oh, hold on, I've got one here. I've got one here. I should have one here. It's not going to be here when I need it. One more. I'm just going to pause and go and find one of those. Found one. Recognise this, it's the emergency light that when you bridge out the terminals in the back, it charges off the mains, and when it detects power failure, it lights up. And recognise the circuit board? This circuit board bears a very, very strong resemblance. So this is actually a circuit board in this emergency light out of one of these lamps. I don't know if there's anything majorly wrong with that. It's not what I was expecting. There is no battery connected, so this non-maintained emergency light is not actually an emergency light at all. This is a cheap, generic, eBay-style fitting masquerading as an emergency light that isn't. It's more of a standard bulkhead light. That is odd. It's really odd to see something like this from a British seller, particularly with the earth wire just jammed underneath the terminal block like that. Okay, now I'm intrigued. Right, let's move on to the other light fitting now that I've taken that one apart. Very suspicious and thinking I may know what's wrong with this other one now because it's got a slight problem as well. Right, here's the other one. It's lit up because it is a maintained fixture. And I disconnect it and it just goes out. Oh dear, right. I think it's time to do a little investigation inside this one as well. Let's put the quick test out the way. That, incidentally, that I had that plugged into. Right, okay, these are just shit. CPC have had these for a while. Every single one of the little catalogues that's sort of aimed at the trade comes out with these things in them. I get the feeling that people buy one, it disintegrates into bits in their hands, it doesn't work, it's not an emergency light, they don't buy any more. Let's open this one up. This one is looking more promising. It says, well, I was going to say lithium ion battery, it says Li-ion battery, Lithium battery. Okay, let's open this one up. Let's just put this wire off first so we can actually get access to it better. Oh no, I'm not going to be able to because the earth wire's trapped underneath, but nothing that a good yank shouldn't get rid of. Righto, that's it, out the way. Let's investigate this. Shall we just actually focus down onto that? Get the focus down better, that should be better. This is where invariably when I've done that, it just ruins everything. Shall we brighten it up? Is brightening it up going to be a bad idea? No, that's not too bad an idea. There's something casting a shadow here. This is casting a shadow here. Wait for your own video ultraviolet thing. Too many ultraviolet videos recently, so UVC videos, so I'll just hold off on that one. I do like some variety. Otherwise people say, no, you've already covered loads of things like this and we don't want to see any more. Not many say that though. Some people seem to like it when I go off on a tangent and cover the same type of thing, but explore lots of different versions. Oh, I'm really excited. Part of me is thinking that this is going to have the same circuit board and a 18650. It's got 18650 and the same circuit board. And you know the interesting about this one? It's not working. And you know why? I reckon that when you compare the circuitry, the protection circuitry in these two, say for instance a Poundland power bank, the power bank will, if it detects the battery is going too low, it will try and recover that. This one, let's see what voltage this battery is. I think this battery has sneaked too low. I wonder if it's anything to do with the fact there's adhesive all over the back. Let's bring the meter in. Let's turn the meter off and on again to reset it because I've obviously left it on. And let's measure the voltage across this lithium battery and we'll see what we're getting. I'm expecting it may actually be less than 3 volts. It's not, it's 3.8 volts. That is a fully charged lithium battery, which means I'm slightly perplexed as to why this isn't working. I've suddenly realised why it's not working. Is it because this has the rest of the circuitry to detect other loads in the circuit? So if I lick my fingers and stick it across the back of this, yeah, it's lit. Oh, dearie me. So technically speaking, that would kind of work. Now I know what the problem is. Oh, that's just weird that they've done that. I suppose it makes sense that they've done that. It is a valid emergency lighting circuit, and theoretically the light will run quite some time. I wasn't expecting it to do that thing where I actually had to put my, the way these circuit boards work, because they're designed for the emergency lights, they've got this clever feature that when you turn the power off, it will detect other loads in the circuit. In this case, the emergency lighting circuit will be across all the rest of the lighting. And that means it will work. It does rely on that slight current flowing back through other loads to turn it on just because of the circuit board they've used. That is strange. I can understand why they did that. They've just repurposed the circuit board. The one thing it's missing that is quite important is the status light that shows it's working. I'm not sure how tight that is in the British regulations about that. Normally you'd have an LED on the front of one of these lights that would like to show, and it is part of the charging circuit, it shows it's not infallible, but it does show that the thing is actually charging the circuit. In this case, suppose the fact the lights are lit shows the circuitry is active, but there'd normally be a red in the old days or a green LED. Some of the modern ones actually have multicolour LEDs and actually do self-tests. So what I originally thought was wrong there was I thought that maybe, unlike the power bank, which will attempt to recover a low battery, I thought maybe they've got a little battery protection DW01 and MOSFET arrangement here to protect the battery from over discharge. I thought maybe it had actually prevented charge even going into it because the voltage may have dropped too low. That is not the case. I have to take that back. But is this a valid emergency light in the UK? I'd actually have to test this now. I'd have to charge it up to full 4.2 volts. And then I'd actually have to test this to see if it lasted the 3 hours. I don't see why it wouldn't. I'm trying to think what I can do here to test this. What I could do, I could put my bench power supply on here and set this to about 3.8 volts, a mid setting. So I'm going to set that to about, 3.8 volts and see what current it draws. Let's say I make sure I get the polarity correct. So I'm going to put the red there. Try not to bridge it onto an adjacent connection. I'm going to put the other connection onto here. Oh, this is not easy. Actually, I'm shortening this out here. This is not easy because now I have to bridge out the other end with a wet finger. Sophisticated. Is it going to do this? It's not going to do this. It's not going to oblige here. One moment, just bear with me here while I just faff around. This is the problem of trying to get connections onto small contacts. It's lit and it's drawing. It was lit. It's gone out again. This is all going horribly wrong. Yeah, this is just not working at all, is it? That's not its fault, that's my fault. It's lit and then it's promptly going back out again because my fingers are near the rest of the circuitry and that's kind of defeating the sensing system. Oh, maybe I should have just paused. Maybe I should still pause. I keep thinking I'll get this shortly and then I don't. Right, okay, I'm going to have to pause. One moment. Right, sorted. I've shorted things out. We're back up and running. So at about 4.2 volts, which would be a fully charged battery, it's running at 478 milliamps. And then as the voltage drops, the intensity of the LEDs is dropping too because it's a simple resistive limiter here, I think. So round about the point that it's getting down to the lower end of the lithium cell, it drops down to about 95 milliamps. I would say that is going to last the full 3 hours plus. Just reducing intensity, but that's not an uncommon thing with emergency lights. They do sometimes reduce. The initial brightness is what's really important here. So yeah, that's interesting. It's kind of not what I was expecting. It really is very cheap way of doing an emergency light using an existing circuit board. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think, do the regulations, I'm going to have to check this up now, do the regulations state there should be a charging indicator LED, or is that just something we've just taken for granted that there is a charging indicator LED? And it's interesting also to note that the other light could be converted to an emergency light just by plugging this into it. I'm quite tempted to do that right now, actually. One moment. So this was the non-emergency light. I'm going to plug this in. Plug the battery in here. Oop. Yeah, it has gone in. Then short out these two terminals here. And yeah, that is indeed turned into a full emergency light now. Alright. Interesting to know, but I really wouldn't actually recommend buying these for professional applications. They're not really what I'd call compliant with the expectations for an emergency light, and it's quite odd that CPC are kind of selling stuff like this.